Hi. On my recent trip to Las Vegas in May of 2017, a couple of weeks ago, I did something I wanted to do for a long time. I wanted to get Jessica Marciel on tape to do an interview. Known her for a long time. She's done everything to do in the music business. And there's a few things in this video that we left out, we didn't get to. Of course, she was elected to the Las Vegas Rock Hall of Fame a couple of years ago. And she has so many accomplishments that I just wanted to let her do it in her words. And keep in mind, when you hear all the things she accomplished, she did it 45 years ago when Las Vegas was not a friendly place to people of color or women. I can tell you, I lived there. And she did it all with grace and professionalism. And I hope you enjoy this because it's special. And the women out there today tell me stories of how their money's being stolen, they're not being treated equally, the misogyny that goes on. So keep in mind, this was a woman who has done everything in the business. And everybody loves her in Vegas. Do you know Jessica? Oh, I love Jessica. I love Jessica. She's my favorite girl. I love her. She's my best friend. So keep all that in mind. And please enjoy this marvelous video. Go ahead.
All right. Well, my maiden name is Kluger. So it was Jessie Kluger when I was young. When I was 3 or 4 years old, we moved from New York to Los Angeles. My father had been with Guys and Dolls and Artie Shaw, and we moved to Los Angeles. He was with Ray Bolger and Joe Gray and worked with all these people in LA and traveled a lot. But I knew when I was 3, 4, 5 years old, I knew I was going to be a singer. So people used to always say, "What are you going to be?" And I was like, "What do you mean, what am I going to be? I'm a singer, that's what I am." And my first album for Christmas was Edie in Love, Edie Gourmet. So the first song that I really learned, except for Shirley Temple, was The Man I Love by Edie Gourmet, with the verse. Very important to have the verse. So anyway, being raised in Los Angeles, I just did a lot of singing, a lot of dance lessons, tap, ballet, jazz. And then when I was about 11, my dad was working a lot at Capitol Records. And so he ran into the CEO and said, "I have this young daughter, she's in Van Nuys Junior High, and she's a great singer, can I bring her up to meet you?" And he said, "Sure." It was that easy. It was the early 60s, and it was that easy. So my dad took me up there, and I took my guitar, which I just strummed really badly, and I can't remember the song that I did, to tell you the truth, but I did some kind of folk song, probably. Records, I went into this huge office with this enormous desk, and I sat on the other side of the desk with my dad, and I just played my guitar and sang. And he just leaned over and pressed a buzzer and said, "Anita," or whoever it was, "come in and bring the contracts." And I looked at my father and I was like, "Oh my God," I couldn't believe it. And he signed me to 6 sides, which was 3 singles. In those days, you did singles. And in those days, it was Frank Sinatra was on Capitol. And it was shortly before the invasion of the English rockers, the Beatles, and everyone, Herman's Hermits. So, it was at that time when everything was changing and Sinatra was becoming a little obsolete and the Beatles were taking over Capitol. And I know Sinatra eventually left and went to another label. So things were changing, and so I was getting in at a really bad time. But I did get some airplay, and I got a jump start to my career as a 12-year-old. When the records came out, I was 12, and I got some press, and I did some opening act concerts, which was terrifying. But my luck was that my first record was called "Johnny Let Me Go," and there were like a million trillion Johnny teen idols. And so whenever I would sing "Johnny Let Me Go" at these concerts, the girls would scream because I was talking about a Johnny. And so that saved me. Okay, so after they dropped me, the label dropped me, that was when we moved to Las Vegas. I was in Van Nuys Junior High. Kennedy had been assassinated. All my friends had been my friends since kindergarten. It was really traumatic to move to Las Vegas. But when I got to Las Vegas, Dennis Hunt at Kino Radio was playing my record. And so I got to go and be interviewed on the radio and on television by Gus Gouffre and Red McElvain and all these celebrity TV hosts and radio hosts in the 60s. And I became kind of, well known for being a recording artist from LA. Really helped me get into a band really fast. And then I got into a second band and a third band. The third band I got into, Free Circus, was a lot of originals. And so we got to open for people because they used cheap opening acts in the 60s when people came to Vegas. So they would use a local band so they could only pay them a couple $100s. So that was fun.
Who were some of the bands you opened for?
Grateful Dead, Santana, Three Dog Night a couple times, Steppenwolf a couple times, Blue Chair. You know who those are? I didn't know who they were either. And let's see, who else? Sweetwater. Who else? I can't remember. Iron Butterfly. There's just so many. It's all on my bio, and I can't really remember right now who I did. But it was fun, and we also went to Lake Tahoe in the summertime and worked at a place called the Blue Tooth, and we got to actually open again for Steppenwolf, and we had a house we rented in Myers, which is a little suburb away from Lake Tahoe, and we had the band out there, and I made spaghetti, and I got to hang out with John Kay and his wife, his beautiful German intelligent wife, and talk to them all night. It was really cool. It was really cool. I mean, they're real intellectuals, and I was really
What
impressed.
year are we in about now?
This is 1968, 69,
Cool.
early 68. And Grateful Dead. We opened for Grateful Dead shortly before I left for LA in 69. So when I graduated high school, my sister introduced me to this agent. I won't say his name. It's a Bill Cosby kind of story there. So I went to LA with this agent. He bought me a plane ticket. Next morning I met him at the airport, just went off to LA. He checked me into the Beverly Hills motel, not a hotel, motel with a kitchen. And I would go to the market and get food. I was a vegetarian, so I would always go to the produce section where I met Charlie Manson. So I'm in the produce department, and I'm waiting for auditions. I hadn't auditioned for anything yet, and I'm just, in the produce department, and this very hairy hippie, but everyone was hairy and hippie. It was 1969, but this guy's trying to pick me up, and I really am not interested. He's really dirty, and I'm not there for romance. I'm there for some eggplant. And he's like, are you a singer? And I said, yeah, I'm a singer. And he said, I'm a writer. Come out to my car. I'll play you some of my songs. And I was like, oh my gosh. So whatever. So I paid for my groceries, and I did go out to his car, and he had a guitar, and he played some songs, and then he said, I have this ranch, and all these people live there. Where are you staying? And I said, well, I have a place, Well, if you ever need a place, I have this ranch, and we have horses, and we go horseback riding, and the hair went up on my arms.
So you auditioned for Charlie Manson.
To be one of his girls? Yeah, I guess I did. Thank goodness, I just have good instincts about me. But shortly after that, when I did the audition for Hair and get in it, a couple of the guys had also met Charlie, and they had been to the ranch and went horseback riding and they said these zombie-like women. These women were like zombies. They were just on something, and their hair was standing up on their arms too, and they left and never went back. And then of course we saw him on the news after the Sharon Tate murders. That was in August, and we saw him on the news. I think it was maybe October, November, when they arrested the Manson family, and we were like, oh my God. It was like, oh my God, I met this guy. I met him. I was like that close, and so that's always been. So while I was in Hair, it was really a great time in my life, even though the war was real volatile and the civil rights and women's rights. It was a pretty volatile time. It was an amazing, amazing time to be an adult. I got to protest. I got to go to City Hall and do sit-ins, and the Smothers Brothers were our producers besides Michael Butler. And so we got to know Tommy Smothers, and who I actually, by just coincidence, got to know later because my sister did their hair, both Smothers Brothers. So later on in Vegas, when I was an adult and working the lounges, I reunited with them in Las Vegas, which was kind of fun. And doing hair was incredible, and I'm still friends with everyone today. We still keep in touch. We see each other as often as we can. But after hair closed, I was in this horrible car accident, and I lived off of my disability and then unemployment, and I just kind of had a good time. Even though I was recuperating for about a year, I lived in Nichols Canyon in this beautiful house and had parties, and I went to acting school 3 times a week. Justin Smith. It was on Little Santa Monica and La Cienega. And my acting classes were a blast, and Barbara Hershey was in there. Michelle Phillips from Mamas and Papas was in my class. Helen Reddy came once in a while. A lot of people from soap operas. It was a really interesting class. And Michelle Phillips was a trip because, when she was dating Jack Nicholson was in the back row with his feet up waiting for Michelle to, and then Dennis Hopper would pick her up. And then, all her celebrity, Warren Beatty. It was crazy because she had all these movie star boyfriends. So being in that acting class was more of a trip.
So, Jessica, we're up to like the mid-70s now, and I understand you had an interesting occurrence in 1977?
Mm-hmm. I was working for Suma, Walter Kane, and Howard Hughes, they owned about 5 hotels. It was really the first time a real conglomerate thing happened in Vegas. And so I was in the lounge, at the Copa Lounge at the Sands, Jessica and Fantasy. And so I had, I was in the paper all the time. They had PR people, and it was really a good time in my life. And this man just used to come in to hear me once in a while, and he was real nice, and he said, "Do you want to go see Bill Cosby on your night off?" And I said, "Sure." So we went to the Hilton. I met him there, and we watched the show. And then after the show, he said, "Let's go in the dressing room and meet him." I said, "Oh, I'd love to." So I went into the dressing room, and there were some people in there, and everyone was, talking and having a good time, and I was sitting on a couch, and slowly people started to leave. And then it was just the man that brought me, and I kept looking at him like, well, isn't it time to, it seems like it's time to leave.
The man who brought you, and who else?
And Cosby.
Okay.
So anyway, I kept looking at him like for a sign, and he said, "Oh, I'll be right back," and he left me alone in there. At the time, I really didn't. It was Bill Cosby. I didn't think anything of it, and I never told this to anyone until these women came out a couple years ago. I think it was 3 years ago, 4 years ago. I never told anyone this. Not even my mom. I never told anyone this until a few years ago. So he kept wanting me to take this wine, and I said I don't drink because I had a glass of Perrier and lime, which I had been drinking, and I said I don't. No, and he said, "Oh, you'll like this. It doesn't taste like alcohol." And he just kept, and I didn't think anything of it at the time. He was just, because a lot of people tried to push alcohol on me. I always thought it was like a social thing. It's like, well, if I'm drinking, you're drinking. When you go out with the girls and they're drinking, they're like, "Jessica, why aren't you drinking?" And they never used to leave me alone. "Why aren't you drinking?" So I didn't think anything of it at the time, but thank God, I didn't take the drink. And now he's sitting next to me, and he puts his hand on my leg, and he said, "Let's get this party started. Let's move it over to the couch, the other couch." And I just was a bit frozen. This is Mr. Bill Cosby. You're very intimidated when you're in your 20s. You're young. And when something like that happens to you, and it did happen to me when I was in hair, the agent that got me the job, I went through this with him. And you either start crying, you freeze, or you run. Your instincts kick in. So what I did was, I thought I would be funny or be amusing and distract him. And I said, "Oh," and I took his hand away from my leg, and I just held his hand. I said, "You must be mistaken. You must think I'm a hooker. I'm a singer. I'm at the Sands Hotel. My name is on the marquee. I'm one of your peers." And I don't quite remember if he said anything, but I know I went for the door, and it was locked. And so now I'm banging on the door. I don't remember I don't remember what happened or how I got out, but there was a bodyguard outside the door, and I did get out. I don't remember how, and I don't even remember going home, and I don't even remember anything for about, I don't know, 24 hours. I was just in shock. And I never told anyone because nothing happened, and I figured I was the only one. I didn't know. I thought, okay, I just was young. He probably thought, you know. But every time I saw him on the Cosby Show or the Jell-O commercials, I would think, oh, nice man.
That's scary. I mean, first of all, I don't know how many people on this planet ever met Manson and Cosby. I had an incident with Cosby.
I guess I never really thought about it that way.
Thank you so much for sharing that with us. I know it's not one of the fun things of your career. Thank you.
Sure. So what I really love about life now, having had my career and having done really everything I wanted to do, is now I can mentor younger people. You know, I have students at this place, Hollywood Access Inc. It's an acting academy, and they're from 7 years old to 19. And I work there 3 days a week, and then I have my studio here where I have a lot of students. And I not only teach them my experience about the business, but I teach them vocal health. And I'm still taking lessons, and I still go to a vocal therapist and who works with my ENT, and I'm teaching my students about, you know, how to stay healthy and not lose your voice, and how to keep your stamina. And it's all about, it's so involved, you know, muscle tissue massage and exercising your tongue and your jaw, and it's just amazing. There's amazing things to learn. And I'm still learning, so I'm an eternal student. I'm a vocal coach and an eternal student, so my life is very complete now.
And I can't think of anybody else who has had more experience vocalizing, traveling, shows, rock, jazz. I mean, they're lucky to have you.
Thank you.
Jessica, thank you so much for letting us come into your little
Welcome to Las Vegas.
studio here. Thank you. And I won't be away 5 years again. I'll be back soon.